And we are live. Look at that.
Look, you know what? And I hit it late, but I don't care.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my goodness. There's no LinkedIn show out there, no LinkedIn Live that has so much trouble.
No, we're real.
We're keeping it real. Welcome to Jenny, Winny, and the Average Dude. Jenny, do you think we're going to have technical difficulties today?
I don't know, because it's made me a little anxious because Daniel's been a little glitchy,
I've been a little glitchy.
A little pixelated.
A little pixelated. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. But we've got a great guest today. Yes, someone that I've been wanting to get on for so long. He's actually helped me a lot in my speaking style. And actually I use a lot of what he recommends doing my LinkedIn videos. So can't wait to introduce everybody to Abraham, excuse me. And want a guy to talk to Jenny Winny. Jenny Winny, how are you?
I'm good. I'm tired. Yeah.
Tired.
Yeah, I told you.
We were talking about you being tired before. Now you went to Chuck E. Cheese, took your grandson.
Yes. And my granddaughter.
Oh, took them both?
Oh, I took them both.
And that's brave.
It's so brave. It was so brave. And this morning I was like, man, my arm. But you know what I think it's from? I was like shooting dinosaurs, Oh. And so, yeah, I think I pulled a hammy.
Oh boy, yeah, pulled a hammy. You got an injury at Chuck E. Cheese. That's we don't hear that a lot.
You don't. So, you really don't.
Yeah. So I noticed we are streaming live to not just LinkedIn, but also to Facebook, also to YouTube.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Isn't
we don't
cool?
have any comments yet.
We've got to we've got to be able to make our audience aware on Facebook, because they're whatever. And hey.
There's Mr. Joe.
Joe, you never let us down.
Yes, and I hope that Joe never lets us down, and we really appreciate that. And you're right. I have been wanting to introduce our guest to everybody else for a long time, so I'm glad. I hope he makes it. You never know.
Yeah, he'll be here.
Yeah. So
you sent him the link, though, right?
I did send him the link. He's got all the information, and I'm telling you, Joe, he has some different information, and it really changed my perspective on how to communicate more effectively. Yeah. So looking forward to that. So you went to Chuck E. Cheese. You got an injury.
Yeah.
What else?
Let's see. What else have I been doing? I've been all over the place. Hey, I was actually with you a little bit this week.
Oh, yeah.
Thing going on tomorrow.
Got the big speech. Speech. And so that's what was ironic, too. Love having Matt come on the show the day before I go give my keynote. So maybe he's got some last-minute tips and tricks.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking that he's probably going to say something that relates to his podcast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Think fast, talk smart. Think fast, talk smart.
That's right. Oh, I wish we could.
Well, I know you can think fast.
I can think fast and I can talk fast, but I don't know about the smart part. That's where I go. That's where it gets tough.
That's where it gets kind of like, a little bit.
Yeah. You know what I'm going in tomorrow thinking, though? I will be happy if I can keep my pace at a certain time, because if you get nervous, you want to talk fast, and I already talk fast. So
listen, and I'm going to tell y'all something, honestly.
Yeah.
I could give this speech.
You could not, Jenny. There is no way you could give this speech. This is way too intellectual for you. I
could dumb it down. Okay. I could dumb it down. I'm just saying that I've had the privilege of hearing you speak it to me.
Yeah, you have. And I appreciate you helping me in all the ways. So that's been very nice. But we have a pro on here now. I'm gonna get the advice from the pro, and no more from Jenny Winny.
You know what? Actually, I think he'll be like, you need to listen to her.
Really?
She not only thinks fast, she obviously talks brilliantly.
You think it's gonna go that way, huh?
Yeah, I do.
So, this is gonna be a lot of fun.
You can determine that, okay?
Jenny, did you have anything else you wanted to talk about before we can't talk any more about you. It's all about Matt once we bring him in here. You do understand that, don't you?
Okay.
Okay. Well, Hey, Joe, last name is Abrahams. And here he comes, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Matt Abrahams. Welcome to the show. Hey,
Yes.
Matt.
Hello.
How's it going?
It is going well. Thank you. Excited to be here with all of you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I want to tell everybody kind of how this came together. So I was watching a YouTube video that you did. It was a presentation. I'm pretty sure it was at Stanford. I think it's got like 32 million views on YouTube. So I wasn't the only one that watched it, right? But he's talking a lot about extemporaneous speaking and how that we form these thoughts and then it comes out and we try to sound a certain way instead of daring to be dull, which is another thing that I want to get into. But it really helped me, Matt. I mean, you've been doing this for a long time, haven't you?
I have indeed for decades now. And I'm so glad that you found it helpful and that other people have found it helpful.
Yeah. And so I'm curious where your journey and your career, how did you get into being a communication teacher, expert, professor, coach?
Well, I'm going to tell you the honest truth. It happened when I was 14 years old. I'm one of the few people I know who figured out what was important to them really early in life. And I'll tell you how it happened. Yeah. So I was in my freshman English class, first day of high school. And do you remember when the teacher would have you stand up and say what you did that summer as a way to Right. Well, with the last name Abrahams, I always went first. AB would always go first. And I told what I did that summer. I don't remember what it was. I'm sure it wasn't that eventful. At the end of the class, the teacher comes to me and says, "You're really good at this talking thing." Those were his words. He said, "This coming Saturday, there's a speech tournament I need you to go to and present," because each teacher had to send a certain number of kids. I, of course, being a freshman, did whatever the teacher said. I prepared a speech. It was a speech on karate. Karate was something that was important to me then, still is. I get there early one Saturday morning. Sun's not even up. I walk into this big auditorium. Some of my friends are there. The girl I liked was there. The parents of my friends are there judging. Nobody wants to be there. I get up to give my speech. It's a 10-minute speech. I am so nervous. I forget to put on my special karate pants. You can tell where this is going. I start with a karate kick to get everybody's attention.
Oh, no.
I'm anxious right now. Okay, go ahead.
I got everybody's attention because I ripped my pants from belt loop to zipper in the first 10 seconds of my speech. And it was at that moment I became very aware of how much anxiety can affect people in their communication. And ever since that moment, I've been interested in it. I went to graduate school to study it. So communication is something that I've been fascinated with, primarily because as a 14-year-old boy, I ripped my pants in front of the girl I liked.
Hey, whatever works, right? Whatever motivates you.
Wait, did you make it through the speech?
Yeah. So yes, the teacher that was in the room was very kind. She threw me her sweater. I tied the sweater around my waist so I wasn't flapping in the wind, and I finished the presentation. And I actually won, not because I was good, but because all of the parents judging me felt so bad for me. They said, "This guy's got to get something.
He's got to win."
Yeah, exactly.
He's got to win. I mean, come on.
So I got positive reinforcement.
There you go.
Well, Matt, I've got to tell you, I mean, I love that story because a lot of times we think when the worst possible thing happens, there's nothing worse than ripping your pants. Have you ripped your pants since?
There's pretty much nothing worse than being a teenager with ripped pants.
Yeah, that's bad. I mean, so I remember I was I've told this story before, but I was in a Toastmasters contest. It was a table topics. You speak for 1 to 2 minutes. They asked me the question, nothing, crickets. And so I did what they did. You remember the Teenage Miss USA pageant when they asked the girl the question and words just started coming out. They made no sense whatsoever. I mean, it was bad. And the person behind me, he came down. He had his hands in the air. He was running, and he gave the best 2-minute speech you've ever heard. I said, "Well, there you go. That's what you get for being an average dude right there."
Well, your speech motivated him. He's like, anybody can do better than that.
Yeah, exactly. But I couldn't do any worse. It gave me a little bit of freedom because I'm like, well, it's kind of like Matt ripping his pants. Okay. Yeah. I mean, what's the worst thing that's going to happen?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You and I have both lived through it. So anything's better than that.
I know. And here we are still trying to do something, speaking. Right. So, Well, that's fun. So I know you've done a lot of different things, and you've got the podcast, and so and you've written a couple of books as well, haven't you?
I've got one book out there and I'm working on another. So I have a book called Speaking Up Without Freaking Out. It's all about techniques to help yourself feel more comfortable and confident speaking. Again, originating from when I was 14 years old, but it's based on academic research to help people feel more comfortable and confident. So yes, absolutely.
What do you think is the number one thing for making you not freak out? I mean, like if you had to say, if I could give you one tip for being able, because I mean, there's something about, I always say I have fear of man. I can be the most extroverted person.
Right.
But in that situation, it's like that fear of man overcomes. And you know what I mean? It's just like, whoo. What would you say is the one best thing?
Well, I'm not a therapist, so I don't know that I can help you.
Close enough.
I'm going to give you two. I can't just give one. So one is to help you with your physiological symptoms. Many of us get nervous, we blush, we shake, our heart pounds.
My neck turns blotchy red.
Absolutely. For the same reason people perspire. Yes. Taking deep belly breaths has been shown to really help work on the physiological symptoms. And what's interesting, and I learned this on my podcast by interviewing a neuroscientist, it's not the inhale that's important, it's the exhale. So you want to do a slow, deep belly breath, like you're doing yoga or Tai Chi, but you want the exhale to be twice as long as the inhale. And in so doing, you actually can slow down your autonomic nervous system's response. So that's the number one thing. The second thing is to take time to structure your content. If you think through a structure, it gives you a roadmap. The number one fear people share with me is they're afraid of blanking out.
Yes.
And if you have a map, you can't get lost. So if you take some deep breaths and you spend some time in advance thinking about how you want to structure your content, those two things alone will help you significantly. Now, there are many other techniques, but those would be the top two.
That's smart. You know, because I've even said to someone before, I was like, you know what? When you know a subject, when you know, like a map, then you can talk about it. I mean, you know, it's like if you're telling a story about yourself, you lived it, you know it. You know what I mean? You don't have to think about it. So, yeah.
So that's helpful for, you know, as you know, Matt, as I shared with you my first keynote speech, a big deal for me. It happens tomorrow morning. So it's so ironic to have you finally, I'm able to get Matt locked down and here we are. So
well, I wish you well. I want to hear all about how it goes.
Yeah. So I'm going to use some of the tips and things because I did try to a quick refresher, but I love that extemporaneous speaking that you talked about because you know, it's your networking event. I remember you saying, and it's coming around to my name and you're supposed to come up with something and you're like, oh, I want to sound smart and not dumb. You know, but then you choose the thing and then you state it like it is. Can you help me with that, Matt, to kind of?
Sure. So this is all called Think Fast, Talk Smart. It's the name of that talk that you saw on YouTube. And it's also the name of the podcast I host for the business school. So it's all about how can you put your thoughts together quickly and sound intelligent and come off looking confident, competent.
Yes.
So in those situations, you want to first reduce some of the pressure that you put on yourself. We all want to do our communication right. And I'm here to tell you, there is no right way to communicate. There's certainly better ways and worse ways, but there is no one right way. And we put so much pressure on ourselves to do it right that it actually gets in the way of us being able to do it at all. So I have the audacity to get up in front of Stanford MBA, some of the best and brightest business students in the world. And I say, dare to be dull, just like you heard. This is a phrase I learned from improvisation. And then the idea behind this is if you strive for perfection, you put so much pressure on yourself. And from a neuroscience point of view, you're creating so much cognitive load that you can't focus on what it is you're trying to do. So instead, just get it done. Just do it. Just deliver the speech. Just introduce yourself. And when you go in with that mindset, you actually reduce the pressure, therefore giving you more cognitive resources to do it really well. So when you strive for mediocrity, you actually can achieve great. And so that's the first step. And I encourage you to do that as you think about your talk tomorrow. The next thing is you really have to think through the opportunity that you have. Many of us see spontaneous speaking, extemporaneous speaking as a challenge or a threat. Somebody's asked us a question, somebody's asking us for feedback. Instead, those are opportunities to do some really cool things like share what you know, help somebody along, connect and bond with somebody. And if you look at it as something that's an opportunity, it will bring you forward into the interaction. If I'm defensive, I'm leaning back, I'm being curt, my tone is harsh. So you first have to get out of your own way, remove that perfection. Second, you have to see it as an opportunity. And third, it comes back to structure. So if you're introducing yourself in a small talk situation or in some kind of situation where people don't know you, my favorite structure to use is 3 simple questions. What, so what, and now what? So introduce yourself, turn that what into a who, say who you are, say what you bring to the situation or what you're excited about, and then ask a question or to have somebody else introduce themselves. So you start by saying what it is, you then explain why it's important or relevant, and then you ask for something next. What, so what, now what is your friend? So those 3 steps alone will help many people feel less nervous and do better in spontaneous speaking.
I like that.
Yeah, I do too.
So let me ask you this, Matt. I've been going back and forth between using slides, not using slides.
Oh yeah.
I have a slide presentation that I'm planning to use. I know it's a little bit different, right, with the cadence and everything. I probably have too many slides, maybe, you know, for my time. And it's a little security blanket, but it's a great structure because it has helped me to segment the speech, much like you're talking about. But instead of 3 sections, I've got too many slides. So I'm not going to say how many people be like, oh my God. Yeah.
There's a difference between a structure and an ordering of content. So a structure is a logical connection between points. So as long as you have a logical connection that flows, then you should be able to give your presentation without slides. My big question for you is, are the slides for you or are they for your audience? And if they're for you as a crutch, as a teleprompter, then I would encourage you to not use them because it's going to distance you from your audience. You're going to be more connected with those slides than you will with the audience. Now, if the slides provide value to your audience, they help them in some way, then I would encourage you to do it. But use the mantra, less is more. The less you put on a slide, the more value it will have for your audience. When you create slides, you should be focused on what is the least amount of information I can put on the slide to be valuable. It's not all the things you can put on because then you end up competing with your slides.
Yeah.
We have very limited capacity to process verbal information. And when you're speaking, speaking words. And if you have a lot of words and bullet points on your slide, you're causing conflict and your audience can't pay attention to either well. So simple slides with images that reinforce what you're saying. That's
images. And that's what his is really is images that just like, you know, almost like just, you know, the representation of what he's saying. You know what I mean? Because that's one thing. It's like nobody wants to sit there and read bullet points. You know,
that's right. It's called public speaking, not public reading.
Yeah, that's right.
Hey, you got to ask Joe's questions right here, Daniel.
We'll bring her on up here.
Yeah, what's the #1 lack of communication and reason for this great resignation in business today?
So why are people leaving their roles? That some of my colleagues at the business school could respond better than I can. I can tell you that communication has become, through the pandemic and what's going on in the world today, communication has become so much more critical and important. And sometimes people feel that either they don't possess the skills and that's putting them at a disadvantage at work, or they feel that they're not being respected for the communication that they are bringing forward because people are so distracted by all the different types of information. And I am certain that those could be leading people to check out of their work and go find work that is more meaningful and where their communication can either be honed and developed or at least respected.
That's the thing. I feel like sometimes people think they're not heard.
Yes.
You know, because you can have a conversation and you can tell when they're just, you know, they're humoring you, so to speak, you know, and it's like, so if they're not heard in a business world, I mean, then they don't feel appreciated.
Absolutely. One of the single best ways we communicate and value people is through communication and more importantly, through listening. We often focus on the speaking part of communication, but listening is so critical and true, connected, present listening is hard, but it is a sign of respect for sure.
That's what I said. I always say to Daniel, I'm like, you know what? We're playing a game of tennis. We're not playing golf. You know what I mean? It's like, because if you're not listening, then it's not even to me like a real conversation. It's like, I just disregarded what you said and I'm just going to say what I want to say.
I really like that analogy, especially because I am so poor at golf. I never see anybody else on the course. All my friends say, let's go golfing. It'll be fun. We'll be able to talk. I never see them because I'm always in the rough.
Yeah, that would be me too, Matt. I tried. I bought a couple of sets of clubs and I'm so embarrassed. I tell people, I'm like, don't pay attention to what I'm doing. Okay, just keep going.
I just say, I'll see you at the end, probably an hour after you.
See you later. Yeah.
I'll be chasing that ball somewhere. Yeah. So when you were doing some of these, you did work with a lot of HR teams and things like that. Is that accurate to say? Because
I work with lots of different organizations, lots of different functions, HR being one of them for sure.
Yeah. And so I was reading like some organizational team things, listening skills. And the reason I'm kind of going into that's kind of along the lines of what I'm talking about, showing empathy, listening well, how to have a good conversation. Some of the things that I've learned from my podcast is kind of what I'm, speaking about in the speech.
Isn't hosting a podcast an amazing way to hone your communication skills? I have learned so much. I tell people all the time, Matt, that there's nothing that has helped me more with my sales career than doing the podcast. Because absolutely, I've become a better teacher. I've become a better friend, a better romantic partner for my wife, just by practicing these skills. Yeah. I think the number one skill I've learned as a podcast host, and I'm wondering if this will help or is part of what you're talking about tomorrow, is the ability to really synthesize and paraphrase what people say. It demonstrates you're listening, and it really helps people feel valued and extends the conversation. I think paraphrasing is perhaps one of the most valuable skills that we can develop as communicators.
And man, I'm so glad you said that. It absolutely, that is what has to happen. You have to listen well enough that you can say what they just, as I'm doing right now, right? Say what someone just said, summarize it, but you have to be paying close attention. What I have noticed, Matt, because I do want to mention that it's in my notes to say the way that you let them know is to say it back to them. And interestingly enough, I've noticed, and I plan to start implementing this on LinkedIn. Sometimes someone will make a fantastic post and we comment and we, instead, how you do with the bat and you start kind of do it like almost one-upping. You don't want to feel like you're one-upping with your comment, right? I think what's best is to say what they just said in their post in a different way, and you still can come across as someone you're not saying, you still can add to it, but to your point, it really is nice to say, I understand, I heard your point.
Right. And I think to also show that you took value. So in the posts that people post to my LinkedIn or to the Think Fast Talk Smart LinkedIn, I'll often comment on thank you for, I always like to start with gratitude. And then from there, explain how what they said added value to me, or I think it can add value to others. So it's a way of not only acknowledging, but helping them understand the value that it provided.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just that validation, like you responding, thank you for that. People, they just, oh, wow. I have a different business than what y'all do, but I have a women's clothing store and all that, and I post these things, but then I have all these people that will comment and I'll say, and they're like, well, you made my day that you even acknowledged that I said, you know what I mean? It was just like, people like to be validated somehow.
Yeah.
Well, and they are adding value. I often learn so much from folks, and I want to thank them for that. And that's how I think we invite people to continue sharing their insights and input with us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I want to tell you about the little activity that I have planned and get your thoughts on this. Okay.
Sure thing.
Yeah. Hey, I'm putting myself out there now, but I think this is appropriate to do it here. Why not? Right.
Yeah, so I think it's good.
So it's a 30-minute talk and about 7 minutes in, I start the activity in it. I call it passing a note. And I say, remember in school, we passed notes. We couldn't talk. We couldn't text. So back in my day, we had to pass a note. Do you like me? Yes or no? Circle one, right? Yeah. Or maybe. Give me a maybe. So you're saying there's a chance.
But when they take your note and turn it into a paper airplane, what the hell?
That's right.
That means no way.
Yeah, that means, okay.
But, you remember Dumb and Dumber? So you're saying there's a chance. Not a chance in a million. So what I'm going to do is have them pass a note to the person to their right. So I have index cards and of course pen. They will make a note. What's the message? To raise their state, to make them smile, to make them laugh, draw a picture. If you know them, compliment them, validate them, that sort of thing. So, so you think about the person to your right, you write it down, pass it, they get it, they take it in. Now flip it over, write what you felt after you read it and give it back, right? So now, all right, what do we get back? What words are we hearing? You know, hopefully excited, you know, motivated, inspired, grateful. Man, imagine if we started our days like this, right? I mean, if we were intentional about empathy and validating us, it all comes back around, you know? I mean, I'm validating, they're validating, and then we're coming back. Now we've got a team full of ready to roll, ready to take action.
I really like that activity. Certainly you're showing that you and I are of the same vintage with passing notes, but I really like that activity for several reasons. One, it gets people engaged. And in talks, virtually or in person, it's not a passive activity. You want people engaged in taking polls, asking questions, showing video clips, having people write on note cards. Wonderful way to get people engaged. The other thing it's doing is it's really highlighting several key elements of effective communication. One, when you look to that person at your right, you're going to make some quick assessments about what would be validating for them. You're going to try to hone your message for who they are, which we should all do when we communicate.
Yes.
Second, you're going to look for the feedback that you get. Many of us just send messages out and we don't take the time to reflect and receive the feedback. You know, there's that definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. That's how we communicate. We don't take the time to reflect and say, what worked, what didn't, how did this impact? So I love that your activity builds that in. And I like how you're going to explain the activity when you're done. When you use that word imagine or what if, that gets people engaged very mentally instead of you just telling them. So you've got lots of good elements in that activity. I like it a lot. Don't copyright it because I might want to use it.
I knew it. Matt's going to take it. No.
You know what? And I agree, because I said when you're engaged, like when as an audience member, when you, even if it's like a show of hands, anything that requires me to participate, it's more enjoyable. That you have my attention, you know.
Yeah,
that's right. Can I make one comment about showing hands or taking polls? People make this huge mistake. So taking a poll is a great way to get people engaged, but people then do not comment on the results. So people say, raise your hand if you had breakfast this morning. And many people raise their hand, and then they'll start talking about lunch. And you're like, why did I raise my hand? You have to comment on the results.
No idea. Yeah,
that's right. So you have to say, that's what I thought. Half of you. And one. Otherwise, it looks like a trick. So if you take a poll or ask somebody to do some kind of activity, make sure you comment on the results. In the virtual world, people say, type into the chat or give some information in the chat, and then they never respond to what's there. So the person's feeling like, why did I do that?
Why did I do
it? Have to follow up.
That's a great one.
That is.
And now I know that you've got, let's bring Joe's question up here. I want to talk about some of the fun things you've done with your audiences though.
He's just
Jenny, can you read that in my eyes?
Communication's a genuine exchange of thoughts and information. Communication's a genuine exchange of thoughts and information in a common interest.
Okay. Yeah. So I
100% agree. 100% agree.
Absolutely.
And the trick to effective communication is finding that commonality, finding how you can connect and make your communication relevant. That's the challenge. And it requires us to do some thinking in advance about who we're talking to, what's important to them. Many of us just the fundamental mistake people make in communication is they start from the wrong place. They start from, here is what I want to say, rather than what is it you need to hear. And that is a fundamental shift. And if you can do that, you can be more effective in your communication.
That's one thing I was talking to Daniel about when he was, talking about his speech and everything, is that he's going to have lots of different people from business in different roles. So it's not all about what this applies to HR or what it should apply something they can all take something from it.
That's right. And knowing who's in that room will help you hone that information. Great.
Yes.
So I remember some of the audience participation, some of the games that you did, and I can't remember which videos it was actually in, but I remember one where they were pointing at different things around the room. I love that one. Can you explain that one?
I'm happy to. So I have a colleague at Stanford. His name is Adam Tobin. He's a professor. in the arts. He teaches screenwriting. He's an amazing guy, great improviser. And he taught me this game, and we use it in a class that we co-teach. It's a game called Shout the Wrong Name. It's an improv game that's been around for a long time. And it's really designed to get us to see how we actually get in our own way, how we judge and evaluate our communication before we do it. So the game is very simple. And actually, everybody listening in right now can play this game. All you do is for 10 or 15 seconds in the room you're in, you look around and you start pointing to things, but you call them anything but what their name is. So if I look at a chair, I could call it a cat. I could call it yellow. I could call it pretty. I just don't call it a chair. And what you find when people do this activity is they struggle. They struggle because, one, we're not used to calling things that they're not called. Right. But more importantly, people want to do this right. I do this in all my classes. And I had a student once, and I kid you not, for the whole 15 seconds, he was just pointing at something, but nothing was coming out of his mouth. And I said, that seems pretty strange. So I asked him, I said, what's going on? And he said, I'm just not wrong enough. And I want you to think about that for a second. Yeah. He is judging what he says before he says it, and he is deeming himself not wrong enough. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, I was going to call it a dog, but dogs have 4 legs, chairs have 4 legs, dogs sit on chairs. All of this stuff is going on in his head. He's judging and evaluating. And that's what we all do in our communication. We prejudge what we say before we say it. And that limits the ability to connect and be in the moment. Now, I am not saying you should always suspend judgment and you shouldn't think before you speak. No, you absolutely should. In fact, most of us are really, really good at that. But in certain situations where spontaneity is key, where you're trying to connect quickly, that over judging and evaluation gets in your way. So this game, Shout the Wrong Name, forces you to see those things that you do. And then the more you practice it and think about it, the more you can turn that dial down and do less judging and evaluating to strengthen those other muscles for spontaneous speaking. So it's a really fun game to do. You can all do it. Kids, believe it or not, are amazing at this. They don't have the same concern that adults do about being judged and people are going to think we're stupid or silly. So have kids play it, and then you try it, and you'll see a total difference.
That is true. I see that. Okay.
And it's so much. I hope that everybody goes and watches the video. To watch a big group of people do this, it's really amazing.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it helped me because I understood what you were thinking, and I want to kind of go down that a little bit because you're right. We prejudge our words. We get this mind jump going on, and I wrote down, connect and be in the moment. What I really want to do tomorrow, if nothing else, be in the moment. So
yes.
Absolutely. So I would recommend a couple things for you because being present oriented is a great way to manage anxiety. Because if you think about it, a lot of our anxiety around speaking is our concern about a potential negative future outcome. So I want everybody to like me. I want everybody to learn. I want people to buy my book, whatever it is. Those are future states. And if I'm worried about that not happening, then it can really make me stressed out. So the counterbalance to being worried about the future is to be present oriented. So before you speak tomorrow, if you can, go out and talk to some of the people in the audience, connect with them. It's really hard to be worried about the future when you're doing a conversation in the moment.
That's true.
Do something physical. I know a professional speaker who does a few push-ups before he goes out on stage. Or there's a woman I coached who, to get present oriented, she would play Tetris, that video game on her phone. Yeah. And that would absorb her so present oriented. She would get so intensely involved and so present. She actually had to set her timer to stop playing. Otherwise, she would have missed her speaking engagement. So anything you can do. Athletes listen to songs or playlists before they do the sport. Yes. Those are ways to get present. And when you are present, your audience will feel it and you'll be less nervous.
Okay. I like that, Matt. Thank you. And I think if I feel myself like not doing something, like I have to do what I normally do, which I'm a high energy person. I need to move a little bit. I like the push up idea, the deep breathing. And I'm sure you've heard of the power poses and things like that.
Absolutely.
I try to tell myself that I'm in a, just like fully expand, the limits because we want to go like this, and break that invisible box where I have a little freedom to move around, So
absolutely. And bigger is better in terms of displaying confidence. And I recommend when you get up on that stage, take a few steps forward, do a big welcoming gesture. It's going to make you feel good. The audience is going to see you as confident, and it's a great way to get things started.
Yeah. You know what I might say? We made it, because I've been thinking about you. We made it. We're here. This is it.
We did it.
and then roll into it,
Well, I think that's great. I think that's a great way to get people connected.
How do you get people out of, to me, it's like, I could be confident about something, and then do you ever doubt? I know you don't probably now because you do it all the time, but you doubt that what you're saying is like, I don't want anybody to ever think, well, that was dumb. Why did you say that? Daniel has told me to get out of that. He's like, you got to get out of that. Like, there's no dumb questions. Even when we're talking to people, sometimes I'm like, I don't know what they meant by that. He said, why didn't you ask them? I was like, well, I didn't want them to think I was dumb.
So we are so worried about what people think that it really stifles us. And the reality is everybody else is worried about what you're thinking of them, that they're not thinking about you as much as you think they are. So and there's actually an academic phenomenon called the spotlight effect that it shows that that's actually true, that we're so worried about what people think of us that we're not really thinking about other people as much. So I
got to look that up.
The other thing to think about is that, we're all human. It takes some people longer to understand what people have said. Asking questions is a great way to get around that. Paraphrasing for clarification can be really helpful. And, the communication is about learning. In fact, the definition, the roots of the word communication are to make common. That's what communication is all about. So if you think of communication as I'm just trying to make my knowledge, my beliefs, my attitudes common for you to understand, not to necessarily agree with, but to understand, it changes your perception of what we're doing. It's not about me being right or wrong or you seeing me as smart or dumb. It's really about me sharing my ideas, my attitudes, and you sharing yours with me. And then we can have a conversation.
I like that. Yeah. That it really helps to kind of just simplify. And I had remembered some of those things. One of the things you had mentioned too is to kind of think, and you said this earlier with the 3, but you showed your notes in one presentation that you were doing, and you had your notes were questions,
That's right. So a lot of first and foremost, take a step back. Most people write out scripts and memorize them. Memorizing is actually detrimental.
Yes.
For all the reasons I mentioned earlier. It takes a lot of cognitive bandwidth to be tracking what you're supposed to say and wrote down.
That's what I heard.
And you've also created what is right. That's
right.
the way I'm supposed to say it.
That's right.
And that puts a lot of pressure on yourself. So avoid memorizing. Some people benefit from scripting things out, though. It helps them get their thoughts down. It helps them organize. So I'm not against scripting. I'm against memorizing scripts. Once you have a script, create some kind of key points, bullet points, outline that you can help to keep your structure in mind. What works for me is rather than having declarative bullet points, I use questions. So if you were to ever see notes for a lecture I give or a keynote I deliver, you'll see it's just a series of questions. I know the answers to those questions. So 1, it builds my confidence. And 2, it makes me more conversational because I am simply answering your unasked questions. And Daniel, if you were to, on your slides, if you are to use slides and you put titles on those slides, make those slide titles questions. And that's all the prompt you need. You see the question, you know the answer, you'll get through the material of that slide. So I'm a huge fan of question-based outlines. It really makes a difference for me and for those I coach and teach.
Question-based outlines. Now that's something that I did. I remember that because I really liked that idea. And so I told myself, what questions am I answering here for them? Number 1, who am I? Why me? And it's kind of similar to what you were saying earlier, but it's still the same idea. What did I do? Why am I speaking? What did I do? What's in it for you?
That last one is perhaps the most important question of all. And that's what I was going to encourage. What's in it for you? That relevance is critical. We are very stingy with our attention. If I don't feel like I'm going to get value from the interaction, then I'm not going to invest as much in it. So you have to let me know very early on why I should pay attention. And that's why I like the activity you talked about, the note card. That's why I like things like imagine, because when you ask me to imagine, I see it in my mind's eye and I get excited about it. And that brings me into the conversation
And don't you think you should do that early on? Otherwise,
absolutely. I think it should be the very first thing you do.
Yep.
Can I get up on a soapbox real quick?
Yeah.
One of my biggest pet peeves about communication is how people start presentations and meetings. Most of us start presentations and meetings by saying, "Hi, my name is, and today I'm going to tell you about." Boring, lame, and often it's in front of a slide that says the name of your presentation and who you are. So you're just reading the slide. I think all presentations and meetings should start like action movies. How does an action movie start? With action. You're dropped into a scene, you're trying to figure it out, you're interested. And then they show you the title.
That's right.
And who's in the movie.
Ooh, man.
So if you start in that way, you get
just had an idea.
engaged. Yeah,
that's great.
That is.
I'm not changing my seat, but that is great.
But to me, to reel them back in, if it's boring and then you throw in an activity, it's kind of like, I've kind of checked out mentally.
That's right. That's right. We're fighting people's phones. You know, people want to be on their phones. People want to be checking their Slack, their email. So you have to keep them engaged. And the way you do that is make it relevant.
That is all. Yes. Yes.
To the whole idea that we were talking about, you know, what do people think of us? People aren't thinking of us at all. You know what I mean? I mean, we can get their attention. I mean, you know, we're grateful. Everybody's competing for attention. Everybody wants people to think of them. Then they worry, why are people thinking about me? You know, I mean,
there is some irony there. I mean, people are judging and evaluating you, no doubt, but they're not doing it to the extent that we tend to think. And if we can get them focused on our message and the value the message has for them, that's where I'd much rather they focus, because that's where they're going to end up taking value, learning, advancing. So help them focus on the relevance of what it is you're saying so that they can then truly derive value.
That's right. Because who I am doesn't matter. What they think of me does not matter. Does the message benefit them in some shape, way, or form? That's really, you know, I mean, because at the end of that speech, we'll go on with our lives. Everybody will, you know, I mean, the decisions we make after the speech are what matter, right?
Yeah, the actions and the way we view the world, absolutely.
This is when Daniel, I let him know I have a question, and sometimes
I say I like it. I didn't know if that was your magic wand.
You're welcome to use it, Matt. Okay, I can make you one, whatever.
I would love one. I like one that's an exclamation point when I have a really important point to make.
I just want to know. Okay, so after started at 14 doing that, do you ever get nervous now?
I do. Not as much as I used to. I as somebody who studied anxiety around speaking, as somebody who's coached people and taught people for years, I still get nervous, but it's only in very specific situations. I'll give you an example. There is an organization, it's a wonderful organization of people who teach communication skills at top business schools around the world. And we get together every year, and sometimes I'll present, and I get nervous as all heck when I'm up in front of my peers. These are people who know as much or more than I do, who've been doing this for years, who I really respect. I will get very nervous, and I will do some of the very techniques I just talked about to you. I'll take deep breaths. I'll get present oriented. I'm actually a big fan of saying tongue twisters before I speak. It gets me present oriented, warms up my voice. So I still get nervous in certain circumstances, and I still work on techniques to help myself feel more comfortable and confident.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about there, because I gave my speech to someone who's fantastic speaker, and it was different. You know what I mean? Because you know that this person is, I don't know. It was different. He was super nice. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's right. As Matt said, you're amongst your peers, and that they're going to look at things a little differently. So you do feel a little more pressure.
Absolutely. And it's because we respect them so much, right? And we want to do justice to who they are and what they know.
That's right.
Yeah.
Hey, and expectations. That's the first slide. My first slide deck, it's the slide just says expectations. Yeah. And I've got a lot that I'm thinking about, because I'm expecting, they're expecting, you know, the world is kind of built on expectations.
That's right. And expectation management is what I think goes into effective communication. You know, I often use the analogy of being a speaker is like being a tour guide. I was a tour guide when I was in college. I was desperate for money, and it was the highest paying job I could get. And the number one thing they taught us to be a good tour guide was not to walk backwards, not to speak loudly or smile. It was never lose your tour group. You are a bad tour guide if you get people lost. And the same is true in our communication. And how does a good tour guide keep people together? By setting your expectations. We're going to go here, we're going to go there, we're not going there. And when people have their expectations set, they can then relax and be present and part of it. If you don't know where you're going, and if you don't know where a speaker is taking you, then you're on edge. You're like, what's this all about? And you're making your audience work really hard. And if the audience has to work hard trying to figure out what you're saying, you're out. You're not making the impact that you want to have.
Yeah. That's good.
So expectations and expectation management are critical.
That is so good. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I'm looking at my first activity as kind of an opportunity for me to catch my breath and slow down, because the biggest, what I know would be, my goal is to breathe during the speech, right?
Yes.
So that I'm not, and I'm hoping that once that activity starts, I can kind of relax a little bit. I mean, I only have 30 minutes, and this could be as much as 10, 12 minutes of activity, really. I mean, maybe not that long, but close.
I'd recommend you keep the activity a little shorter than that. But you know, slowing down when we get excited, when we get nervous, we breathe shallow. The faster you breathe, the faster you talk. So taking some deep breaths before you go is great. And the other thing that really helps is if you do broader, slower gestures, we sync up our speaking rate and our gesture rate. I can guarantee as a fast talker, you gesture quickly. Yeah. And so if you want to slow yourself,
nailed that, because he's just like,
yes.
And I'm like,
slow your gestures down, extend them. You will slow your speaking rate. And if you need a way to just slow yourself down, and you just feel like that train is left the station, if you don't have an activity, simply pause and ask your audience a question. And it can be a rhetorical question, a polling question, but while they're thinking of the answer, you can take that deep breath. So I will often, in the midst of lecturing or giving a keynote, I'll pause and I'll say, let's pause for just a second. I want you to think about how what we've just discussed can apply to what you're doing in your daily life. And people don't think, oh, he's going too fast or he's trying to slow himself down. They think, wow, how can I apply this to my daily life?
What do you think about
and that gives me that time to catch that breath. So
I like that line. Yeah.
So if you feel you're getting ahead of yourself in your breath, ask the audience a question, take that deep breath, and then get going again.
Are you ever asked to speak about something that you don't feel as confident speaking about?
Sure. It happens all the time. I've got 2 teenagers. I'm often talking about things I'm not comfortable
I do too. So I understand that.
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. But I go into inquisitive mode. So I'll ask a lot of questions. So if you ask me to talk about something I don't know, I'll ask questions about it, and then I'll give opinions. And I'm always trying to make connections between what I don't know as well to things I do know well, and try to make some bridges there so I can have some opinions. But I will often start from inquiry. When I don't know something as well, I'll ask a lot of questions. My 2 teenagers will tell you that a lot. They'll say, Dad, stop asking the questions. But it's my way of one, demonstrating interest, and 2, trying to make those connections.
Yeah,
that's right. I mean, that's an important thing, the questions. And I'm just trying to think, because it's part of my speech too, you know, learning to have good conversations and asking the right questions. And so isn't it ironic that all this worked out today? I mean, seriously.
He's been trying, you know, he's been talking about you, and then it just happens that you're here the day before.
It was meant to be. It was meant to be.
That's right.
You're going to do great.
How old are your kids, your teenagers?
I've got a 17 and a 19-year-old.
Okay. Mine's about to turn 19.
There you go. Yeah.
That's a whole different ball game.
Let me tell you, it's communication is very different.
It's key.
And sometimes just getting them to communicate is hard enough.
Absolutely.
One of my kids, I think, is training to be a spy because he doesn't say anything. So we're working on it.
Hey, probably a lot to be learned from him, you know.
For me, for sure, I'm the opposite. Maybe that's why he's so quiet. He's never gotten a chance to speak.
Yeah,
I love it.
That's right. Yeah, you're taking all the stage time.
Take the airspace. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on. I know you're a busy man, and we appreciate you taking the time. And I'm gonna let you know how my speech goes. I feel like you gave me all these gold nuggets. So
it sounds like you're well prepared. I am so grateful to be here. It's lovely when I have a chance to help people. If I do,
Yeah,
that's what the podcast, the book is all about, is helping people. And I hope it works. And definitely let me know. Good luck. It sounds like that audience.
And thanks, Matt. And for folks that are watching, seriously, the reason that Matt's on here is because I watched that YouTube video and some of these tips. These are things that I have not heard, and they've helped me tremendously. So I really appreciate you coming on. Have a great day.
Yes.
You as well. All the best, and great to get to see you and know you.
Thanks.
You. See ya. Well, Jenny, what'd you think? Did you learn anything?
I almost hit it. Oh, wow. I mean, I feel like I can give a speech.
Yeah, I thought he was really great. And I think it's so funny with the timing that he comes on and some of the things that I've been going through.
Though, that you planned that for people who are like, oh, Daniel, the average dude planned that. He planned that. So, and nope.
No. And I'll tell you another funny story here is I have the suit that I'm wearing tomorrow is I had this shirt and these pants and I was like, I'm probably never going to wear that. So then I go out and buy this sport jacket. And I'm like, what am I going to wear this sport jacket with? What do you know? The thing, so it's nice when things just start kind of working out, it'll all work out.
I'm telling you what, though, I mean, it's like, and as we were talking, I was thinking about, the little book that I wrote about, with my daughter, OCD. Yeah. And I had to give that. And I thought, man, I wish I had known all these things before I had to give that speech in front of those doctors and therapists and stuff.
Yes. But now I'm going to put it right into practice. It can be like, oh man, I heard Matt's point on go out, talk to the audience, shake some hands, meet some people. That's exactly what I'm going to do because I can see how that would help me, go over to the important table, if you will. You know what I mean? Yeah. Shake some hands and go ahead and, hey, I'm going to be up there standing anyway talking, so might as well go ahead and have a conversation with
I'm going to tell you what, probably next Thursday, we're just going to have to, get a good fill in on what you did.
Yeah, the experience. I thought, I need to probably do some videos and things and for my own, even just to kind of document it because I've been thinking about this for 3 months now. 3 months,
Yeah.
So, and Jenny, you know it because you have to be around me too much to not know it. But, hey, I want to tell the joke where I say, hey guys, this is going to be a great speech. Reason I know my mom and dad loved it, and they wouldn't tell me. They wouldn't say it's going to be great.
They said it was fantastic
because they're such. Yeah, they're not saying that because I'm their son. That they wouldn't do that. So
no.
Well, Jenny, Winny, what you got planned for the rest of the day? I don't know. Oh, you don't know?
I don't know. Right. I mean, well, actually, you know what? You know how things go in 3? I've got to go buy a fridge. I need to buy an oven.
Oh.
And I'm thinking I might as well just go ahead and get a dishwasher.
Oh, my goodness. You're putting all kinds of new appliances in.
Well, I need it. They all go in 3s. I mean, they start.
You're probably on the same. Yeah, that's probably a good HVAC idea, too. So I like that.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Well, hey, enjoyed it, everybody. Thanks again to Matt Abrahams. Make sure you check out his content. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Let's roll. See ya.